What up, beautiful people? This is your man, Theo Wilson with African Diaspora News. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention, but you need to pay attention to Ethiopia. Because what's happening in Ethiopia right now is revolutionary when it comes to the power and how it is dispersed in Africa, literally. Because the Ethiopians have finished construction on what's called the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and it is set to be a game changer when it comes to not only dispensing real power, but political power through that region of Africa, the Nile Valley. You see, with the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, Ethiopia is set to double its power output to over 5,000 megawatts, bringing electricity to parts of Ethiopia that have never had electricity before. But not only that, it is set to be a dispenser of electricity to countries around Ethiopia, including South Sudan, including parts of Somalia. And regardless of the political strife inside of Ethiopia, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam has been something that they all can agree on. And if you've been paying any attention to the strife that's been going on in Tigray, the bloodshed that's been happening, the fact that all the Ethiopians could agree that they needed to complete this dam, I think is a model for African people everywhere, because that's beef. That's what it means to be at each other's throat. The tribalism to the point where it's cost thousands upon thousands of lives, but they all understood that not only do they have to invest in this power project, but they can't rely on anybody else to do it. Ethiopia, once again, is a trailblazer and setting an example for the rest of Africa. But, there's always a but. Not everybody was happy about the construction of the Gerd Dam. You see, Egypt had long been the power player when it comes to the Nile Valley's water supply, and this is something that dates back to the colonial era. But the fact is, because Ethiopia is further upstream, Egypt feared that it would be able to use its ability to dam the Nile to constrict it of water. And there was a whole lot of saber rattling and talking crazy from Ethiopia at the beginning of it, to the point where Trump actually chimed in thinking that Ethiopia would one day wake up to the dam being blown up by Egypt. But due to some recent political developments in Egypt itself, all that tough talk cannot happen. Militarily, it has become unfeasible. Check this out. The Arab Weekly reports, today, that option is politically and militarily inconceivable. Egypt's hands are full. The devastating war in Gaza, a crisis now centered even more squarely on Cairo following Israel's strikes on Qatar, and the ensuing humanitarian catastrophe have consumed its diplomatic, economic, and security bandwidth. They also report the strategic retreat is not just a matter of circumstance, but a matter of policy. While its diplomats continue to condemn Ethiopia's, quote, unilateral actions and issue stern warnings about its existential threat, Egypt's planners are quietly engineering a future that accommodates the GERD. The evidence lies in its massive investments in desalination. A lot of people don't know about this, but Egypt has infrastructure invested in just taking the salt out of the ocean and giving the water to the people. But what's this new investment really look like? So here's what happened. Egypt was forced to be strategic. The Prime Minister, Mustafa Maduli, said that he is going to invest in producing 10 million cubic meters of desalinated water for Egypt within the next 6 years. So they've already got 100 plants that are operational right now by the ocean, literally taking salt out of the water. And they said that's going to be our backup plan for if some kind of conflict happens with Ethiopia, we'll still be able to give water to the people. So that's Egypt's backup plan. And I kind of like it. It's saying if there's some kind of conflict with Ethiopia later on in time, we're going to have the ability to give water to our people, regardless if they somehow leverage the Nile and cut it off for us. That's smart thinking. But understand this. They used to say that the Gerd Dam in East Africa was like a major chess piece on the board of power there. Now they're saying it is the board itself. Now, as a black American looking at this, I could not be prouder of Ethiopia, because what you're seeing here is a practical demonstration of Pan-African power, literally. You're seeing Ethiopia say, I'm not just going to keep this electricity to myself. I'm going to also disperse this and create a larger trading bloc when it comes to energy, which is going to create a stronger bit of diplomatic ties in the area. And if there's an East African power bloc that forms, that means that the continent will be even more economically and energetically independent than ever before. Which means that if there's a strong relationship with Black Americans, if there's a strong relationship without the diaspora, not only do you have the ability for Ethiopia and other countries that are developing to be a safe haven for Black Americans, but you have the ability to also project power in protection of diasporans all across the globe. We are in a brand new era of African development, and us throughout the diaspora need to be rooting for the continent, because so many times the continent has rooted for us. And see, what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a special connection between Black Americans and Ethiopians. And that is because when Italy was trying to colonize Ethiopia, there was a huge enlistment effort among Black Americans to leave the country and fight on behalf of Ethiopia. That was an effort that was actually stopped by the United States government, because they knew that we could fight, and now that we had been through the world wars, they knew that we was trained. But there was one man who got through, and that was a brother named John Robinson, who was educated at Tuskegee University, and he went over to Ethiopia and trained Ethiopia's Air Force to fight off the Italian encroachment, and they successfully defeated the colonization effort. So we have a deep, deep tie to them, and when Africa wins, we win. And I just want y'all to keep on rooting for Ethiopia and keep on rooting for peace and a fair and equitable power distribution throughout that region. My name is Theo Wilson with African Diaspora News. Go ahead and follow my personal YouTube channel at Theo Cyrus Rising, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Y'all take care. Be blessed.